Hello and welcome to another Teamo8 hand review session. Today we've got some hands from an 18-seat turbo sit and go, and this is our players. This is a player making a transition from a shovel fold strategy into one where he plays flops. So let's get right into it. Okay, and he's folded this hand. This hand is a perfectly good hand to limp behind, and he probably should have done it. His very first hand at playing flops, so he missed that one. That's okay. Okay, we have our next hand here. We're under the gun with ace, ace, queen, five, pair of aces and a wheel card. Let's see what happens. Okay, our player's made a small raise here, 3 times the blind. This is a mistake, really, for these games. The reason being is the hand is incredibly robust. It wins a lot, but it's with only a 5 kicker for the low. It is really hard to play out of position post flop. What our player should do here is just simply jam, and believe it or not, you get called often enough to make that jamming quite profitable. But basically we want to avoid in the early stages of a sit and go. Hands played in the early stages make very little difference to the outcome unless you either win a lot of chips or lose a lot of chips. Otherwise, there's no point in putting yourself at risk by playing a tricky hand out of position. So what I would have much rather have seen is see our player here just simply jam that. But let's see how it goes. As expected, in the first level, everybody calls. Okay, now we've flopped really badly, so we want to just try and check this down. See what happens. Okay. Ordinarily, this might look good to a lot of players. We've now got deuces full of aces. But with this many people seeing a flop in a split pot game, the chances that someone has quads is quite high. So we really want to get to the river as cheaply as we can. Okay. This guy min bets into a full table. What could he possibly have? Unless he's incredibly stupid, he's not bluffing. So he either has quads or he's got a full house. To bet into the whole table, who knows, maybe he's got jacks or queens. Of course, we can't beat pocket kings here either, so what do? We call. That's okay. We do have, the third best possible hand. Okay, river comes, doesn't help us much. Now this guy makes a big bet. Okay, there really aren't many possibilities for him to have. He's bet into a whole table and got called on the turn. Now he's bet the river with a big bet. The only hands he's possibly going to have here are quad deuces, kings full, or threes full. And we lose to all 3 of those hands, so we should just snap fold here. But our player makes the call, unfortunately. Let's see what happens. And just to prove my point, I don't usually show results, but yeah, it was quads. We were never going to be ahead of any hand that bet on a board like that twice. Anyway, let's move right along to the next hand. Here we go. We've picked up a nice hand on the button. Let's see what happens. Our player folds. Okay. This, according to our hand range guide, that should have been a jam. I think pretty much anyone would recognize that as a jam with only 8 to 9 blinds. Only one thing I can think of, the very hand preceding this, the big blind was at 50. The very next hand, the blind's gone up to 100. I'm thinking our player just wasn't paying attention and didn't notice the blinds had gone up and that his stack in relation to the blinds, his stack size had just halved. So always got to be paying attention. Little leaks like that, just not noticing that the blinds have just gone up, result in big differences in your return on investment or your ROI at the end of the week or the end of the month. Anyway, let's move along. Okay, with this next hand to look at, we're in the big blind. Let's see what the action's like. Okay, the button limps. Small blind jams, and he's jammed for less than 2 blinds. Now, if we were just playing this player heads up, I'd make the call every day of the week here. But with the big stack on the button, still live in the hand, or in fact anyone's still live in the hand, our hand's too weak to play here. Our player calls, yeah, that's a big mistake because you can't just think about this short stack here. There's no way this big blind is going to fold here. If he's limped, he's getting even better odds now. He's not going to fold, and he calls. So that was a quite a big mistake not being aware of the situation that there was another player in the hand. Heads up, fine. We're with another player in the hand. This hand is far too weak to play post-flop, especially when you're going to be playing it out of position against a bigger stack. Anyway, let's move right along. Okay, same player still. A new game. Let's see what happens. We've got a nice hand here in the big blind. He checks. That's perfectly fine out of position. Oh, and we've flopped the monster. The nut low and the second nut high. This is a fantastic situation. We want to get as many chips in here as we can because we're going to get paid off by a lot of ace-deuce hands that don't have any decent high. And even if someone has a better straight, the 4-7, we'll get enough ace-deuce type players coming along for the ride to well and truly compensate us, even if we've only got half the pot. So he bets out. I like the bet sizing, not too big. You don't want to scare away those ace-deuce players that don't have a straight. Get a call, another call. Fantastic. This is looking good. Okay, and yeah, the thing I forgot to mention on the flop, the other reason we liked it is because our backup kicker, the 4, means that we couldn't be counterfeited if the deuce came on the turn. So now we're really happy because it's really unlikely anyone's playing ace-4. The only problem with this is it's unfortunate that people may not have a hand to pay off with. But let's see what happens. He bets out half the pot, reasonable size bet ordinarily. But with that flush draw having turned up, I'd be inclined to bet a bit more because, you know, we want to protect the high side of the pot, which we've probably got now. So I would bet a bit more. It helps that we have the ace of diamonds, so we know none of these guys are drawing to a nut flush. But some of these players still might draw to small flushes, particularly if they had a hand like, say, if they had 7-3 of diamonds, they might think, or 7-4 of diamonds, sorry. They would certainly be coming along for the ride if they had 7-4 of diamonds because they'd currently have the nut high. Also, you might have players just who are prepared to draw with smaller flushes. We get called just by the one player. River bets just over half the pot. No flushes have come. The only things we can get paid off here by maybe crazy 2-pair hands, or maybe someone silly enough to call with a set, or a weak low. So, you know, there's not a lot of good hands our opponent can call with, so I like this bet sizing. See what happens. And our opponent makes the call. That was well played. Okay, let's move along.